Hello and welcome back to another vlog. Sorry I didn't get one out last week, I had lots going on. I was actually doing prop work on a film, like a proper movie with a proper director, which I'm probably not allowed to talk about annoyingly, but I went and set up loads of old computers on a film set, some BBC Micros and some Amstrads and stuff. It was pretty good. I got a burrito for lunch, that was nice. So I just had to resort to uploading that weird face swap video that a lot of you seem to enjoy, so you know, there's that at least. This week I thought it would be fun to tell you a story from my dad. Now, I was off in the pub with my mate Frank the other day and Gemma, and I told them this story and I realised it was a good one, so I'm gonna give it back to you lot. So, my dad is an electrician, which sometimes, well, in British slang you call that a sparky or a spark, which I think Australians maybe do, but I don't know about anybody else that does. So my dad is 75 next month. He was 40 when he had me, so he grew up in like the 40s, 50s and 60s really, and he was working in the 60s. And he was an electrician or a sparky for 50 years basically, and he retired, I suppose just short of 10 years ago really, so he kind of sits about at home now playing his guitars and just sort of, you know, whatever. He's a bit of a, you might be stunned to learn, he's a bit of a kind of wonky old eccentric, my dad. He's always been a bit like that, and he's really into his poetry, he really loves his music, and you know, he worked like a dog for 50 years, you know, putting food on the table and whatnot. And he told me, I really like this story. He has a story about kind of working for a shitty boss back in the day. So I assume this was probably in the 70s or 80s, it could be in the 90s, I don't really know. And I think it's been long enough as to not incriminate anybody, but let's see. So basically, my dad was working on a building site with a bunch of other guys, and I think it was the foreman there, you know, the boss of the site was just kind of a bit of a dick. Just wasn't a very nice guy, used to shove them around, give them shit all the time, you know, mess with their hours and whatnot. And I think the two kind of main contentious things were that A, he used to sort of cheat on his wife a lot, I believe with prostitutes and stuff like that, and used to brag about it. And the second thing was there was one black guy that worked on the site, and this dude was just like, you know, targeted most of his terror on this one guy. So he's basically a racist prick. So what these Sparkies did was, you know, they wanted to kind of teach this guy a lesson and put the frighteners on him a little bit in exchange for his awful behaviour. So he had a site office. So, you know, that's just like a kind of semi-permanent, well not, it's a temporary building on the site. When everything's been built up, this is going to be carried away at the end where he is based and he has his office and stuff. And what he did as a creature of habit is, instead of going to the site toilet, he would come out of his site office and piss against the metal pole that was just out the back of this site office so everybody could see. And he'd do it all the time. He'd have his cups of tea and that, and he'd go and have a piss up against this metal pole that was around the back. So what these Sparkies did, when he was away from that, pardon me, that's my phone, very professional, ignore that. When he was away from his site office, they used their expertise to wire up this metal pole to give it a small electrical charge. Not enough to kill anybody, you know, not enough to cause any dangerous stuff, just a small electric charge. So keeping in mind that this guy is going around and shagging around all the time, you know, he should probably have concerns for his mental health. Mental health, sexual health. And what would happen was from that point on, every time he went out to piss against that pole, it shot a current up his cock. So every time he pissed, it would tingle. So, because he kept going and pissing against this pole, he thought he had gonorrhea. So he went and got tested for the clap, and they disconnected it. And then when he got the all clear, they connected it back up again. So every time he pissed, he got electrocuted up his dick. And I just think there's a real sort of poetry to that. I think that story's got everything. You know, I haven't lived at home for a long time, and my family at home often rag on my dad for telling the same stories over and over. But my dad's stories are really fucking cool, and that's one of my favourites. It's got a kind of slightly A-Team MacGyver vibe to it. It's got kind of taken down a horrible boss. It's got standing up against racism. It's got ingenuity. I love everything about it. Not my story, it's my dad's story. So that's that, a bit of a short one this time. What I want to do for the next one, I'm going to go up to the studio and maybe give you a little like behind the scenes at the studio. I just want to set the record straight on how a bunch of stuff works up there, because it's actually quite close to my house. I'm a very lucky boy. I think the others, you know, they have to travel further to get there than I do. But it does mean that I sort of go down there on my own quite a lot and set stuff up. So expect that next, and other big announcements coming soon. Bye.